Hi there. I come in this morning to do some framing. Well, I hate framing. I really do. I'd much rather be painting. It's a tedious job and I haven't really got the patience for it. So I thought I'd have a sit down, have a coffee, have a rest and tell you another sea tale. When I first moved to Cornwall, it must be, gosh, this must have been about 1990, probably coming on 91. I got a berth at a Newlyn on a little netter called the Balbatan. Anyway, joined it, I believe, in the middle of the afternoon. Just dropped my glasses on the floor, never mind. And off we went out through the gaps to shoot some nets off the sillies. Anyway, everything was going really well. And shot the nets. Time was getting on, beginning to get dark, and Pip, lovely skipper, I know, we're going to St Mary's, Isles of Scilly. I'd never been to the Isles of Scilly. So we got in the harbour and tied up. Come on, we'll all go to the Mermaid. Oh, I'd heard about the Mermaid, but never been in there. And the accommodation was up Felstead, that's the pointed end for those who don't know. And opened the hatch and looked down where my bunk was, and my bunk was underwater. My bag was kind of floating around down there, and I wanted to change of clothes to go out. The other two had their bags in the wheelhouse, they were dry. Anyway, I'd have to go ashore smelly, but I really wanted a beer. So off I went, all went ashore. Had quite a few beers that night, if I remember, and a good old laugh and a yarn with other fishermen in there. And come back to the boat, all looked nice and dry. Pip had sorted out the pump and pumped all the water out. Didn't really occur to me at the time this boat must leak an awful lot, the amount of water that was in there. Anyway, all got off to sleep that night. You can imagine lots of laughter and banter. We'd all had far too much to drink, but as fishermen do. And next morning, about 5 in the morning, I think it was, before we'd set off to go and retrieve the gear we'd shot the day before. And Pip had been to, I think it was the Co-op or a baker's, and bought 3 Cornish pasties. Well, on the way to the gear, he lifted up the hatch. The engine was just below the wheelhouse. He lifted up the hatch and put the pasties on the engine to heat up. I turned around to him and I said, listen bro, I'm not very happy about this. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm not a Cornishman, but I've heard from the chaps in Malsole and the old boys, you never take a pasty to sea. It's bad luck. Anyway, steaming along there, it's quite a swell in the sea, up and down we go. And I said to Pip, this boat is wallowing. So I went forward, lifted up the hatch of the small fish room, and I looked down. There were about 7 rungs on the ladder normally showing. I could only see the 3 on the top. She was filling with water fast. Went back into the wheelhouse. Pip, you're going to have to, we sprung a plank. Oh, God, no. He came out and had a look. Back into the wheelhouse. Falmouth Coast Guard, Balbatan, taking in water. I think we were about 10 miles off of Land's End at the time. And then the engine stopped. Opened the engine hatch. The engine was underwater. Flywheel was just see the little bit of the top of it. I told you about the Cornish pasties, I said, back on the radio. Falmouth Coast Guard, now we're not making any headway, the engine stopped. Well, they launched the lifeboat at Sennan, and we were taking in an awful lot of water. And then Falmouth Coast Guard said, the helicopter's on its way from Cold Rose. Be with you in 8 minutes. I tell you, guys and ladies, that was the longest 8 minutes of my life. It was quite funny at the time because we had a new guy who I called Rambo. He turned up with combat oilers on, and he sat on the hatch on the deck and he said, is this serious? I said, yes, come on, give me a hand to untie the life raft from the wheelhouse roof. And which he did. and he kept looking at me. He looked as if he was going a bit white. Found the life jacket, so everything was all sort of standing by. The Crimea was one of the cargo ships goes to St Mary's. She was standing by. Couldn't have taken the tow from her, it's far too big. She would have broke us into pieces. And eventually a helicopter came. Prickles stood up on the back of my neck, and I'm sure many fishermen will say that. A helicopter was hovering just above the mast. Out comes the diver, out comes the crewman on his wire, lands in all the anchors on the stern. I heard him scream and the crash, oh dear me. He'd smashed his leg up really badly. Pip helped him into the wheelhouse and sat him down. He's on the radio to the helicopter, demanding they send the pump down to us. It's quite a big thing, great diesel pump with like a bar underneath you, like a sledge thing. He said, if you get to that pump before me when it's coming down, one of you grab it. Well, it's just above my head, it's coming down. I grabbed it with this arm, my left arm, as the boat disappeared into a trough. So I'm now a good 25 feet in the air holding on to this thing. I heard my shoulder come clean out of its socket and I still didn't let go. I couldn't let go. Eventually pulled the pump down, the boat come up to the pump and so on and so on. Got the pump going, it pumped us out, or pumping us out, but it was only just holding its own. Sent a lifeboat by this time had arrived and we were under tow, took us back to Newlyn. Anyway, the next day I'm on Mousehole Quay and I come down to take my own little boat out mackerel in or whatever I was doing at the time. And Tommy, one of the fishermen, said, you were on the Balbatown, were you? I said, yeah. Yeah, we used to go to sea on that. And what we used to do, we used to sleep on the deck. It was bloody drier. And when she told me before, you got to find out the hard way, haven't you, sometimes? That was my first and last trip on the Balbatown. And yeah, there you go. That's another one.